Oh, hi, I'm Joshua Cash, and this is Wrong Opinion. It's going to be an interesting show for you today because I'm going to have Scott Greer on. He's 6'2", I think, and 187 IQ. That's what it says on his Twitter profile. I think that's what he is. So he's going to be a good guest. He's a good political commentator on our side of the spectrum, the political spectrum. So I'll have him come on in a second. So it's not going to necessarily be a full-on interview or anything like that. What we're going to do, and I don't even think he knows we're going to do this, is I have a whole show set up, and we're going to go through things, and I want to have I want to hear his take on things. And like I mentioned last week on Thursday's episode, I think it was, he coined a phrase. I think it was him who coined a phrase basically saying what we're experiencing right now is the Reddit world order, the Reddit new world order. I think it was the Reddit world order. Yeah. And I took a shining to that. I almost called my episode on Thursday that, and then he named his episode on his podcast that, and I'm like, I can't fully steal it from him. So I'll just have him come on and we can talk about those things. And pretty much everything we're experiencing today is the Reddit world order, in pretty much all aspects of politics or warfare or pretty much everything. Everything is through the lens of the Redditor. And it's not really I have a theory, actually, though, and I'll talk to him about it. My theory is that this didn't necessarily happen on purpose. I don't think that there's someone on top who decided to make everyone, a child and see the world through the lens of superhero movies. Hey, the first thing we're going to talk about on this show today is actually The Batman, the movie The Batman. And I don't think that it happened on purpose where everyone's kind of this child. I think that it happened naturally, gradually, and then it sped up over the last 15 to 20 years because of the embracement of technology. And I think that the more our lives have gotten easier, the more we have become soft. And part of that also has to do with our brains. And we like the easy to consume things, and especially with media. So fast forward to what we're experiencing today, it's a perfect storm of all of that stuff that was invented that made our lives easier combined with social media. So we kind of meme each other into, behaving this way. And we create all these so-called subcultures where what we consume has become our identity. And because humans are tribal, so we figured out a way to basically have a tribe without any meaning. And that's like the Marvel versus DC thing. Like, oh, I like Marvel movies, or I like DC. And I think that's where that stems from. And then also on top of that, the third thing is the fact that everyone is self-absorbed and narcissistic, and everything has to do with them. So we're going to get to all that later with Scott. I think he's going to jump on in like 15, 20 minutes. So I think that might give me enough time. I mean, maybe I don't even need all that time on The Batman. So, on this show, I shit on superhero movies a lot. I think that they're made for kids, and it's really cringe. Also, movies like Star Wars and all of that, where you pretty much know where it's going to go, and there's no surprises, and nothing's really at stake. Granted, it's a movie, so nothing really is at stake, but we like to engross ourselves in these stories, and we like to, it's kind of like anything, like with books, with anything. We like stories. Humans like stories, and the stories of now are pretty lame and astroturfed. I mean, they're free of anything thought provoking. They're free of anything menacing, really. I mean, there's really nothing to keep us there. But for instance, a lot of people like the Marvel stuff because the same way that they would like McDonald's, they like knowing what they're going to get beforehand. They don't really like surprises. They're not really adventurous. And that's just, it's the safe bet. and you can have a good time and move on with your life. But a lot of people make that their life. Like I said, subcultures, they embrace these things, and they reject religion, they reject philosophy, they reject very substantial things that are the building blocks of one's life, and then they embrace these sorts of prepackaged ideas and all of that. But when it comes to popular movies, popular culture, rarely will you ever get anything worth consuming and watching, and rarely will you ever want to give any of these companies money, because really they hate you. Like, we all know that these companies hate us, and we all know that we are public enemy number one to all of them. So it's actually funny, like all of these companies, and Batman, for instance, the Batman is not being released in Russia, because all these companies have the same marching orders and they all have the same ideology. And it really, the name of the game is it's globalism. I mean, anything that has to do with being anti-America, therefore. So you want to be careful with what you consume, what you give your precious time to. And once in a while, they're going to make something good. And I actually think that this was a really, really good movie. And I don't even like to categorize it as a superhero movie, because at the heart of it, it's like a detective movie. It's a neo-noir movie. That's what it is. I mean, like a couple of years ago, and some of you may know this, during the fake pandemic, when everything was locked down, I would always go to my brother's house at night, would have dinner there, and then would watch a noir film from the 40s and 50s. And I've pretty much seen all of the ones that are worth seeing. I saw some bad ones, but a lot of them were really good. And movies like that aren't really made anymore, because studios aren't paying for new stuff. So things have to be almost regurgitated, because they want to be guaranteed a profit, and they feel like if they have pre-existing characters and what's it called, like a pre-existing fandom, and like a catalog of things that people are really aware of and used to, that is probably an easier route to make money. And not only that, these movies are typically not only made for the United States because of globalism, they're made for the rest of the world as well. So you have to kind of have like this homogenous worldview. Whereas before, I mean, you'd think of a movie as like, oh, that's like an American film. But when you see these big budget movies now, they're typically bland, and they're bland on purpose. And not only that, they're very diverse, not because they love diversity, but because they have to have an Asian person, because then they can sell it in China, and then they have to have an Indian person, and then they can sell it in India. So it's not, but they sell it to you as like, oh, it's because we like diversity, but in reality, it's because the world has become so open, and there's no such thing as really nationalism or love for one's country anymore. So like I said, like a movie like this movie, The Batman, is pretty rare. So what it seems like what DC Comics has done, because they did it with the Joker and now they're doing it with The Batman, is they kind of figured, okay, we can't replicate the Marvel thing. We can't replicate the McDonald'sization of films, where it's all the same. It doesn't matter what director you have. It's all going to look the same. It's all going to have the same color correcting or whatever. It's gonna have the same music. It's gonna have everything. It's gonna feel the same jokes, everything. So all the Marvel movies, although they have different names and slightly different stories, but not really, it's all the same movie. So DC probably figured out, okay, we tried that, it failed, everyone hated it, we can't do it. Let's go back to the roots and just make movies that people want to see. So the Joker was heavily influenced by Taxi Driver, by The King of Comedy, which was a smaller Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese movie, which I suggest watching. And then it was other movies. And then this one is heavily influenced by a movie like Seven, or probably again Taxi Driver, and all of these things. But again, at the heart of it, it's a detective, dark, gritty movie where it's they almost Trojan horsed like a real film by making it a Batman movie, where it was greenlit because it's a Batman movie, but that's kind of just on the surface, and then in reality it's just like a classic detective thriller that they don't make anymore. Like they really just don't make these movies anymore, and I guess the only way that they can is by just having a character everyone knows and loves. Also, it's just good. It's fun. The acting is good. Minus, I really don't care about the Catwoman character, and I don't care about Zoe Kravitz. She's fine. It's just whatever. A lot of conservatives were complaining that she had a few lines. One saying that Bruce Wayne has white privilege, and conservatives like Ben Shapiro weren't too happy about that one. And I'm like, yeah, but if we're talking about making a real movie, a real grounded movie, there is no superhero stuff in this movie. That's what I like about it. There's like pretty much everything in this movie could actually happen, which actually it all can happen. It's pretty cool. So in reality, this Catwoman character, who's this loner girl who, wants to steal from the rich and all of that, she would be woke. Of course she would be. But then also, like, Bruce Wayne is pretty much an incel. And I like that. He's just it's kind of like how a lot of people relate to he is Ryan Gosling's character in Drive. That's what this Bruce Wayne is, and that's a lot of people online can relate to this guy, which is pretty cool as well, because he isn't this flamboyant rich dude like Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne. Maybe in future iterations he will be, to keep up a facade. But in this one, it's only two. In this movie, it's not an origin movie. It's his second year as Batman, which is also cool. Like, you don't have to go through the whole thing all over again. You know the origin story. You know all of that. So it's just a good detective movie. So people were mad about how woke she was. She also had a line at the end of the movie, something like how she's going to go to blah, blah, blah city to steal from hedge fund managers, and she invited Batman to go with her, and Batman was like, no thanks, I have work to do here. So he's like an incel. Like, he wasn't simping for her, and he wasn't going to go chase her or anything like that. So I like all that, even how woke she was. Like, for instance, one of the characters running for mayor, it's like this Eric Adams black woman female running for mayor. And it's, yeah, of course she would be running for mayor, and of course she would be labeled as hope and change and all of that. Like, I don't care about the intentions of the filmmakers, which is like, yeah, we need to say these things because people expect it. It is realistic. Kind of like how people were complaining about the James Bond movie. And I'm like, that actually would be happening right now in MI6. If anything, it is happening right now. And it's just funny, to see James Bond in that situation. Also, that movie was just a really good looking movie. So if you can let that stuff slide, it's still kind of enjoyable. I would recommend it. But like this movie, it really only had a couple throwaway woke things, and for the most part, it's just not woke. So Ben Shapiro had like a bunch of things to nitpick to sound smart. He's like one of the smartest dumb people I've ever seen, honestly. He's very sure of himself too. He's probably way more well-spoken than I am, and he can remember stats and stuff as, way better than I could. And he's probably a good debater. I definitely don't agree with him on many things because he's pretty much a neocon. And his criticism of the movie, it's almost like the whole point of the movie went over his head. And I don't want to spoil it for you. I just want to tell you it's worth watching. The only thing I could say is it's a little too long. It was pretty much 3 hours long, and I'm watching it in a Costa Rican movie theater here where it's not super comfortable. And the weird thing is like I was watching it and there's subtitles, so I'm watching, it's in English and there's subtitles. And then anytime they would show like a newspaper or a clue left by the Riddler or something, some things would be in Spanish and then some things would not be in Spanish. And I was like, is that how it is in the movie in the States, or is that did they change it for the Latin countries? I wasn't really sure. So I wasn't super comfortable watching the movie, especially at 3 hours long, but I feel like it's going to be one of those movies where I'm going to just like it more and more the more I watch it. Like, I've seen Blade Runner 2049 and the original Blade Runner as well. I've probably seen those movies I don't know, like 20 times each. Sometimes I just keep it on and I like to look at it, and you don't really, at that point, you don't really have to pay attention, and you can appreciate it on a whole nother level. And I feel like that's going to be the case with this. Like, this is a movie with an identity. Like, it's not this prepackaged thing. The director had a vision. Everything, there was a reason for everything. Like, every intention of the movie had a purpose. Nothing was really throwaway. And Ben Shapiro seems to think, otherwise. And look, you see, I'm not a hater. That's the thing. I'm not a hater. I hate superhero movies, and for the most part, they're all trash and not worth watching. And I usually hate big blockbuster stuff, especially made nowadays, because it's all politicized and woke and actually also ugly looking. But this is a really good looking movie, and it's a really contained movie too. Like, it's not this big bombastic, loud movie. It's a very contained movie. And another thing is I loved the antagonist, the Riddler. Paul Dano is such a good actor. If you don't really know him, he was in There Will Be Blood. Really good actor. He's in you should watch There Will Be Blood. He was also in a Brian Wilson movie. He played Brian Wilson, the head of the Beach Boys. The movie was okay, but he was really good. Like, he's just he can make even not so great movies worth watching. He's like a really, really good actor. So he was awesome as the Riddler, which really, he was like a Ted Kaczynski serial killer type of person who was only targeting bad people and exposing the corrupt politicians in the city, kind of up until the end. I'm not going to say anything. But what I liked about him in that character, kind of like the Joker, is like they don't really think that they're bad. Especially this guy, especially the Riddler in this movie. Like, he doesn't think he's bad. And he's so autistic, he actually thinks he's working with the Batman. And maybe he was, and the Batman just didn't notice, really, that he was feeding into him. And like I said, he's like this autistic 4chan Ted Kaczynski type. And you can sympathize with him because you understand his reasoning. It's just that he's a broken person, so he's going about it the wrong way. He's like the complete, not really opposite of Batman. It's like both him and the Batman had the same goals, but their methods were completely different. And also, by the way, I wanted to say about this Batman was he's not boring. Like, he's not like this clean-cut, boring character where he's just good. He has his own problems, and he has his own dark side, and it's just like an interesting character. Like, pretty much every character in this movie is gray. No one's like bad for being bad. Also, Colin Farrell plays the Penguin, but in this movie he's kind of just like a mob guy, and then he probably eventually becomes like this bigger figure. And he was only in the movie for like 10 minutes sprinkled throughout the movie, but he was also incredible. Colin Farrell was great. So the movie is totally worth watching, and the more I think about it, the more I like it, as opposed to Ben Shapiro. The more he thinks about it, the more he hates it. Again, the point of the movie really completely, he missed the point completely, which is surprising, because he purports himself to be a really smart person. There's one thing to be like, yeah, I saw it, I understood it, I didn't like it, but he just completely missed the point. So after you watch the movie, watch his video, and then you're going to be shaking your head and being like, this guy sucks. He's annoying. He's retarded. So I suggest watching this movie. I really did like it. It's not the retification of the world. It's the complete opposite. Sometimes, like very few times a year, you'll get a movie this big that has balls. And they still exist, but for the most part, they don't. So I guess the only things I would complain about is it's a little too long, and it's not rated R. It should be. Like, there should have been more blood. There should have been more gore. It should have been like Watchmen, kind of. He actually, the Batman in this movie reminds me of Rorschach in Watchmen. So just that is awesome. But again, also like the Riddler, really awesome character. You sympathize with him, and you're like, that was awesome, but maybe don't be so crazy, and maybe do things a little bit more hidden. In the movie, he posts things online on a Reddit, on a 4chan type of website, and he has only 500 followers or so, but he really got those 500 followers to do something. And it's funny because this guy tweeted this, and it got 180,000 likes. Just saw that new Batman. Glad they finally made a movie taking on society's real villains, mentally ill guys with less than 1,000 Twitter followers. So that's clearly a joke, but also at the heart of every joke is some truth. And the thing is that guy had insane engagement. Like Riddler had insane engagement in the movie because he was able to, on a 4chan type of website, convince 500 people to go along with his plot, whatever that is. I'm not going to tell you. And that just means he has really good engagement, and he didn't need 1 million followers. So yeah, I don't know. Really interesting character, and you can it might be scary that you can relate to him. But kind of like how it might be scary that you can relate to the Joker. Like the cool thing about that movie with Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker, was the fact that they made a really crazy bad person relatable and likable. And not only that, when he did bad things, you kind of understood why. And was that the intention of the filmmakers? I don't know. Like, was it the intention of the filmmakers in this movie? I don't know. But says a lot about current situation, doesn't it? You know, like BLM, for instance, wants to burn everything down, but what they would replace it with is just something really bad, as opposed to like Ted Kaczynski, who kind of wanted to burn everything down, and you understood why, and you were like, yeah, he's right. We should go back to pre-industrial revolution times where we were a little bit more grounded as people and as a civilization. So you kind of understood his reasonings. You don't understand BLM's because what they want to replace everything with it is completely retarded and goes against human nature. So that was a cute tweet. And then there was another thing. I saw this and I just thought it was really funny, so I want to read it to you. But like, I'm not going to show you clips of the movie. I'm not going to play the trailer in the background or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of be, frank with you and give you guys, my opinions on it. So this guy texted his ex-girlfriend, "Hey, I just saw a movie last night that made me think of you." She wrote, "Dan, as a friend, Jess, I swear." Okay. It's called The Batman. It's about a person who talks in riddles to hurt someone who's trying his best to be a good guy and do the right thing. You see, it's true. It's about a person who talks in riddles to hurt someone who's trying his best to be a good guy and do the right thing. That's really what it's about. And then she wrote, "We broke up because you called my dad an ignorant bitch at my sister's wedding." And then he wrote back, "Because he was acting like one. Batman is misunderstood too. I'm not getting vaxxed for a fucking wedding." I don't know. I really like that. And Dan, in this case here, texting his girlfriend, he understood the point of the Batman as well. And I think that you would too, as opposed to an autist like Ben Shapiro wouldn't really get it.